We're getting ready to play the show this evening in the hangar for our U.S. men and women that are stationed here at Soto Cano, and we're with the Jacksonville Jaguar cheerleaders. Y'all know it.
When we got the details on this tour, we understood that it was concentrated on isolated and remote locations, and that the troops we'd be playing for would number into the hundreds, just because the bases are so distant. The journey began with us flying into Tegucigalpa, Honduras, which is the airport there, and it's one of the most dangerous airports in the world to fly into. But that was an adventure in itself, just flying in. But once we got on the ground and got there safely, we were greeted by our escort, and they let us know that there were riots and protests going on within the city and also near the base. So they thought it would be best if we spent the night in a safe house and waited for everything just to die down. So we did. We were told we might be able to be flown in on Black Hawk helicopters, but that didn't happen, so we were a little bummed out about that. But we did make it to the base. We ended up driving on a bus from Tegus into Soto Cano. It was about a 2.5-hour ride. We got to see the locals, see the local environment there and see how they lived. Got to eat banana chips, things like that. So it was great, just the journey getting there.
Good for you.
How is it?
It's good.
Come on, Timmy.
Not messing with that.
Let's put Timmy on the camera and help me one. Here you go. Switch it up for me.
Tim, tell me a secret.
You secrets.
Michael, do you want some
I'm
more?
afraid of banana chips.
Michael.
How's the zoom on me right now?
The what? Taylor, did you have a fun night last night?
I had an epic night last
What'd you do last night?
Freaking raged. Honduras style.
Honduras style, what does that mean?
Dude, you don't want to know.
You don't want what happens in Honduras stays in Honduras?
Once we got there, we were greeted with open arms by our men and women, and they took us around, showed us, what they do, their day-to-day activities. We got to meet and greet the high command, some of the soldiers, and everybody that's enlisted and stationed there at the base.
And our guys are focused. They're doing a lot of great work out there. And you know what always helps to get that work done is that energy that comes from within. That's where you all come in.
Yeah.
We had a blast. They showed us their world, and then that evening, it was time for sound check and set up and the show there in the Air Force hangar. It was a blast. I mean, you're talking about an isolated base with a maximum of 400 to 500 people on the base, and we had a couple hundred come out for the show that night. So even though there were only a few hundred people there, the energy and electricity was unbelievable, and it felt like an arena rock show, and it was awesome. We had a great time. We were honored to be able to perform for our men and women there, and we can't wait to get back. So as the tour continued, we left Soto Cano and headed back to Tegus, to Honduras, to catch our flight out. And we had found out that the flights were oversold. They couldn't let us on our flight. And so they said we were going to have to sit in Honduras for a few days. And that was just not an option, being that we had to be in Curacao the next night for another show. We ended up having to take a 7-hour bus ride from Tegus to San Salvador in El Salvador, so we got to see some more of the countryside, which was an absolute blast though. We entertained ourselves for hours at the airport and as well on the bus to El Salvador. Spent the night there, arrived there about 1 a.m. and then had to get up at 3 a.m. and catch a flight. We caught the flight from El Salvador then and flew into Miami, and then from Miami we flew into Curacao. We landed at 6 p.m. in Curacao, and showtime was at 7, so we literally had no time whatsoever to get together and to get sound check, and for the girls to get their Roar outfits on and the cheerleaders to get everything together. But we made it happen. The show went on and we had an absolute blast. Curaçao's an FOL location, which means it's a very, very small location for our servicemen and women. It's not actually a base, but what they do there is absolutely amazing. So played the show. It went over great. For some reason, I took a dive in the water as the show was going on. We had a blast. The troops loved it. We loved being there with them. And we were able to give them a couple shout outs back home to their loved ones and family members.
Hey, we're down here in Curacao, full Curacao, the 429th EOS Expeditionary Operations Squadron, Iguana Ops. We're down here doing some counter-drug operations, trying to make America a little safer. Having a great time with the boys from Airiel down and the Jacksonville Jaguar cheerleaders. Yeah, thanks a lot for rocking us out.
Thank you for having us.
No worries. I'd like to say a big shout out to my lovely, beautiful wife, Robin, and my children, Lauren, Kelsey, Katiana, and Elena. Peace out. God bless America.
I'd like to say hi to my beautiful wife, Air, my daughter, Mint,
and my son Brandon. Be home soon.
From Curacao, then, as the show wrapped up, we flew out the next morning. Because of the mess up in Honduras, our flights got all rerouted, and we had to go from Curacao to New Jersey. So we flew into Newark instead of back into Miami like we were originally supposed to. So instead of 2.5 hour flight, we ended up having to fly 6 to 7 hours to New Jersey. Spent the night in Newark, got up the next morning, caught a 6 a.m. flight out to Miami, and were able to catch our flight in time for Cuba. So flew into Cuba on a private plane. Our Navy pilots flew us in, and we landed in Cuba, and it was showtime on July 4th in Guantanamo Bay.
What a rush!
July 4th, 1,000 men and women. It was great. Fireworks under the stars, and just a great show and a great time. We miss our brothers and sisters there in Gitmo and Curacao, and want to tell all of them that we love them, that we're thinking about them. Until next time.